There's not a single American that doesn't know that a woman was killed last week by a federal ICE agent. But where the divide is whether or not people are believing the bullshit from DHS that the woman was a domestic terrorist, or what the video clearly showed, which is someone who was murdered by a trigger happy ICE agent. And now, not only are they spinning the story, but they were blocking congressional members from viewing ICE detention facilities because they're trying to cover the truth. This is blatant authoritarianism, and anybody who cares about democracy should be terrified. Last week, a federal ICE agent killed a woman who was driving her vehicle, Renee Good, during a federal operation in a Minnesota neighborhood. They were going door to door and taking people from their homes. Immediately, Department of Homeland Security claimed that the ICE agent was acting in self-defense against a domestic terrorist bent on killing as many ICE agents as possible. But when you look at the video, that story falls apart immediately. Nobody can say that a woman whose full steering wheel is turned to the right, her wheels are pointed away from an ICE agent, is meant to kill him. And recently, there was a new angle from the incident that shows the exact opposite of what DHS is saying. The video that we're watching right now was taken from the killer as he circles the woman's car. You can see that her dog is in the back seat. She is seen smiling. She says, "I'm not mad at you." She's clearly backing up. She's trying to figure out how she can leave. And as he goes around to get her license plate, which she's allowing full visibility, he speaks to her partner. Her partner is saying that the ICE agent should leave, should go get a sandwich, all things which are perfectly legal. You can taunt federal officials as long as you're not hurting them. And then as she backs up, you can see her steering wheel turning, indicating she's leaving. The ICE agent, all he has to do is get out of the way of the car. But instead, he presses the car and goes forward. He moves the camera down. It looks like his leg barely got clipped by the car, which she was not in trying or intending to do, and he shoots her in the face. Car heads towards other cars that are parked over there, and he ends up by saying "fucking bitch." Like, is this really the story that DHS thinks is airtight? You're really going to try to convince the public that this man was acting in self-defense when it shows that he circles her car twice? If anyone claims that these ICE agents are operating logically, you would not press a car that you view as an imminent threat for your life. If this woman's a domestic terrorist, don't go towards her car. Hide behind your own vehicle. Get out of harm's way. You don't press a car if you think that it's an imminent threat. And if it's not an imminent threat, you do not have justification to discharge your weapon and fire into her face. But these are all facts that everybody knows if they're being honest with themselves and have watched the footage. We heard from local officials like Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who said that the government's narrative is garbage and bullshit. He also said that ICE needs to get the fuck out of Minneapolis. So we're hearing that local leaders are pretty unambiguous in how they view ICE activity in these communities. But DHS doesn't really care about what local government says there. The party of small government, the Republicans, think the federal government should be able to trample any rights that local government tries to claim it has. And DHS said that they are going to take full control of the investigation. State officials said that they were blocked from viewing any of the evidence or the case materials that the federal government had compiled. So if we're being fully clear with what the story is right now, an ICE agent kills a civilian. The video contradicts the official narrative that's propagated by DHS. And instead of transparency, the DHS tightens their grip on the case. They say, we will not allow collaboration with state officials, even though a murder happened on their soil. So hopefully the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, can shed some light on why the department needs unilateral control of the case. Surely she can quell the fears of Minneapolis residents who are taking to the streets demanding accountability. How is she going to calm those nerves down? Let's take a look real quick.
Obviously, so much has happened. It's hard to know what's true here in terms of people getting shot.
Well, Maria, we're sending more officers today and tomorrow. They'll arrive. There'll be hundreds more. And in order to allow our ICE and our Border Patrol individuals that are working in Minneapolis to do so safely, we're going to continue to, if they conduct violent activities against law enforcement, if they impede our operations, that's a crime. And we will hold them accountable to those consequences.
Right. Hopefully the civilians aren't the ones that are doing violent instances, right? Because there's no violent actions taking place on the side of the federal agents. So even as we're seeing tens of thousands of people take to the streets because they demand transparency from their government and they are tired of seeing their neighbors ripped from their homes, yes, let's send more ICE agents. That'll calm the situation down, right? People in Minnesota are just going to sit back and let this happen. They will not continue to march into the streets and demand that their government protects its own constituents. Of course. And DHS knows this. This is only going to escalate tension in communities that already want ICE out to begin with. This is going to push people into more self defense for their community members, which DHS sees as justification to show even more force until every single street has at least 12 ICE agents that are ripping people, stopping them from where they're going, and racially profiling constituents. I mean, look at what happened in Minnesota again. This is right after they killed a woman. They racially profiled this man who's able to prove his residency here simply because of the color of his skin. They approached him at a gas station, demanded that they see his ID. He presents the ID, and they let him go. But is this something that people should expect as regular routine of getting gas for their car? Should non-white residents in Minneapolis or any state for that matter just expect that they're going to be stopped by ICE agents constantly? This is disgusting. And people like this man who's not being stopped is pissed about it. Nobody wants their community to be crawling with these cretins who demand to see ID from anybody who they view as a threat simply for what they look like. It's disgusting. This is not a free democracy. We have armed federal agents going door to door, demanding that people allow them to rip them from their homes. And DHS secretary says, we're going to send more ICE agents to these areas that already have escalated tension. I mean, in this neighborhood right now that we're watching, you see hundreds of Minneapolis residents out there chanting against ICE, angry that this is taking place in the first place. And we have ICE agents that are weapons drawn, ready to fire on any person that they suspect to be a threat from this home. Someone answers the door, says, what is happening here? They close the door. ICE agents immediately move in. And this is normalized in America. Sorry, I haven't been talking. I've honestly been I've been at a loss for words. This is insane to watch. Yeah, it's difficult to talk about these instances. I mean, watching a mother sobbing for a family member being ripped from her custody is just I can't imagine what that feels like. This is what the Trump administration wants to be normalized in America. They want you to live in fear. Even if you don't have anybody that's close to you that is undocumented, your neighborhood is still a potential target for these types of raids. Anybody who claims that they want freedom and they want equal protection under the law should see instances like this and squirm. Nobody should celebrate this. And yet it's getting worse. We saw over the weekend congressional members try to visit ICE detention facilities for one goal, making sure that humanity was being protected and that these people were being treated as the Constitution permits. Democratic Representatives Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, and Kelly Morrison showed up at the Whipple Federal Building and were initially allowed in, but shortly after asked to leave and blocked from touring the facility. Now, it is explicit in our law that congressional members are allowed to visit ICE detention centers, especially those that are happening within the states that they represent. Representative Craig said federal agents said the Minneapolis facility uses money from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and therefore unannounced visits are not permitted. It is our job as members of Congress to make sure those folks detained are treated with humanity because we are the damn United States of America, Craig told reporters outside the Minneapolis ICE facility Saturday. And we don't treat people the way this administration is treating people. More than 2,000 federal immigration agents have been deployed in Minnesota, and more could arrive in the coming days. Where are the Republicans who are demanding limited government? Where are the Second Amendment people who say, when tyranny shows up at your doorstep, you should be able to defend yourself. How is this justifiable? This is blatant authoritarianism, and this is a militarized police state that is doing state terror on its constituents. I don't care what the paperwork is of people who are here. If people need to get more paperwork, I encourage them to do so. But we have many legal ways that people can do that, that isn't just trying to use fear tactics to stomp out any person that's here for a better life or who were dragged here by family members. In what world does it make sense for somebody that was brought here when they were 6 months old to be sent to that country that they have no foundational memories of? I need someone to tell me why a DACA recipient who is going to school to get an education to better this country, why are they a criminal threat? Why do they present more violence to America when every single law enforcement data point shows that migrants from to this country commit less crimes per capita than naturalized citizens? None of this is justifiable. This administration is blatantly trying to cover up its own crimes. And if we don't get more accountability and oversight for the abuses that are taking place in this country, we will continue to allow it to exist. Minneapolis Attorney General Keith Ellison, on behalf of the state of Minnesota and alongside the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, filed a federal lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and its officials, requesting the court to end the surge of immigration agents in the state and declare it unconstitutional. They also asked for a temporary restraining order. As Minnesota streets have been flooded with officers from the Department of Homeland Security and its Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Protection arms. As much as they like to believe it, DHS is not above the law, Ellison said during a Monday afternoon news conference. He said the surge of immigration officials is motivated by a desire to retaliate against Trump's perceived political opponents. In a series of social media posts Sunday, the Department of Homeland Security reiterated its stance that Ross acted in self-defense and the federal authorities were not allowing unjust behavior and assaults against them to stop them. This is more than just one tragic event. This is a question for whether or not the federal government is so far beyond accountability that they don't have to have any transparency with their crimes. They can block congressional members from viewing human rights abuse in detention facilities, and there can be zero collaboration with state and local law enforcement to make sure that the truth gets put out and released to the public. Minneapolis is becoming a test case. Is the government accountable to the public that it's supposed to serve, or can they do whatever the hell they want?